I'm interested to see like the questions you want to ask and how you dive into it, because I think it's going to be a very different approach than how I would try to dive into my own brain. So I think it's a good contrast because you ask questions that bring out the more fun side of me, and I bring out a more structured side of you. And I think it's interesting how that we can pull different information out of each other because of it. So
Do you, I guess I can just start by asking, do you think that as somebody who pretty much followed the rules most of the time, um, do you think that rule breaking made your childhood better?
that's an interesting thing because I didn't break the rules for most of my childhood,
Okay,
like
but when you
what I do
did,
remember.
yeah.
Um, I know it was fun, the things that we did when we weren't following the rules, because the other part of it is I grew up like you didn't have siblings for a while. I only know life with siblings. And so, of the three siblings, there was a time in my life where I was the middle child, the second born, and I was a tyrant. And I terrified my brother, and I broke tons of rules, and I was a little shit. Like, and I wish sometimes I remembered these memories because hearing how ornery I was and how much I loved being ornery, it's foreign because what I remember of my childhood, I wasn't ornery. Um, like, for example, I tried to write my brother's name in permanent marker above his seat in the van. So I wrote it up on the ceiling of the car, thinking he would get in trouble for it. Um, and when I got busted, because obviously, like, I don't remember how my parents knew it was me. Like, they
The
made the joke,
handwriting.
like, no, meaning like Logan couldn't actually spell his own name or something, like they were joking. Um, but I would do stuff like that to try to get my brother in trouble. Um, I would terrorize him. He would run from me crying and screaming, and I was having the time of my life. I don't remember any of that. I was really, really little. I do remember being a daredevil and breaking the rules when it came to I wasn't allowed to ride Logan's four wheeler because it was too fast for me because I was over a year younger. So, and I was much, much smaller than Logan. So I liked going fast and I liked doing daredevil things. And we were at my great grandma's and we were all riding our four wheelers. And Logan hopped off of his, and I saw a moment and I took off running. And mom was like, Bailey, don't. I hopped on Logan's four wheeler and I took off and I was zipping it around because it went so much faster than mine. And I flipped it. That
Mm.
I flipped it. And we had flags on the back of ours in case we flipped or anything. So what had happened was I wasn't used to turning on how quickly his went. You know, like when mine was small enough where when I would turn and I turned right, like meaning I turned, I got the angle right, I could accelerate after I made it through my turn, and it didn't go too fast, so it never got away from me. Well, Logan's four wheeler got away from me. I made the same turn and punched it, and I went up a post. Like I hit the left tire. I went so fast. I turned too far to the left, and I used to have there was the fence that ran like this, and I came from this side, and I used to whip around the fence post, and it was a lane. Like I could go. It was between a cornfield and this just random fence post. And so I would whip around that like a little weird racetrack. So when I made that turn and I punched it, I ended up going too far to the left and I hit the first post. And the four wheeler went up the post, like the tire rode up the post, and I flipped it over back onto myself. And so I'm trying to like wave the flag to let them know because I was trapped underneath of the four wheeler. And I ended up getting out from under it, and mom was like, my gosh, like, are you okay? She was frantic because she threw Kennedy off of Kennedy's four-wheeler and took Kennedy's to go get me because they watched me wreck. And so, like, I remember, like, I had so much fun. I was fine. And I rode after that. I think I got in trouble. But, like, I just remember the rush of getting on something I wasn't supposed to be on. And that was fun. But at what cost? Because then I got in trouble and I wasn't allowed to ride for a while. And I wrecked. So I think when you break the rules, you get like a short high. And I'm not someone who chases those anymore. I think I grew out of that. I used to. I used to love watching somebody get in trouble or, knowing I did, like, because I did it. Like when I would set a prank on my brother, I would love to be like, oh, I got him good. And then there just came a time where, like, hearing him get in trouble or hearing him, like, cry because he got spanked for something that I did, it kind of stopped being fun.
That's a part of breaking the rules that didn't even cross my mind. Like the joy of somebody else getting in trouble for your actions and the fact that you got away with it. I did not even think about that when I was like taking notes for this because, like you said, I didn't grow up with siblings. I was an only child till I was 7, almost 8. But that's interesting because the joy of breaking the rules didn't have to do with getting somebody else in trouble and like it's funny, it's a prank or whatever. It was more along the lines of now I'm in control. Now I'm steering the ship or conning the ship, as they say. But yeah, my perspective of breaking the rules was I was always getting yelled at for everything. So it felt like at the time that I had to break the rules to do what I wanted. So I would be super sneaky. I would, I don't want to say I'd lie all the time, but I got good at lying to get away with little things that I wanted to do. I'm sneaking stuff up to my room and sneaking like food and snacks and stuff when you're not supposed to. But when it came to, going out late when you're staying at a friend's house, like, hey, mom, I'm staying at so-and-so's house and we're just playing video games all night. She knows damn well that we are not playing video games all night. We are going out ding-dong ditching, toilet papering people's houses, running around, riding bikes and having fires and just hanging out with people. And it so much fun. And it was during those times, some of my core childhood memories are from doing those things. And I feel like it's because we were doing stuff that we weren't supposed to, but it also wasn't like something we would have had this serious consequence from. It all depends on intention and what you're actually trying to do. Because if you're just a little kid and you're just like kind of being a little rebel and not doing it to cause trouble, it really is pretty innocent depending on how you go about it. And that's where I think it is okay, and that's where I think it significantly improves your childhood. So many memories come to mind. I'm almost getting sidetracked because I just want to talk about the memories, but I also want to ask why. Like, I always think about why. What is it about breaking the rules or doing what your parents tell you not to do and getting away with it? Why does that create so much joy and fuel so much emotion? And now we look back on it, it's so nostalgic and all the memories it makes. And I'm naming a few right now, but I think why breaking the rules does absolutely improve your childhood is even if you follow the process of doing it. So let's say you're planning on doing something this weekend, you're at school, you're talking about it with all your friends. That right there, you're looking forward to the weekend and doing it, and you're planning out what you're going to do. So you're planning, it's causing social interaction, and it's you're growing relationships because you're trying to get more people involved and you're trying to be sneaky about it and all sorts of stuff. Then you get to do it, and you're usually, in my case, it was physical activity. So you're running, you're riding bikes, you're doing whatever, and it was fun. And the adrenaline rush when you're doing it is the best part. The funny moments of when you're in the moment and you might get caught and somebody gets in trouble with their parents, but we talk our way out of it. We get better at negotiating certain things so we are able to go and do the things we want to do. I can't tell you how many times we would show up to a friend's house at like 9 o'clock at night on a Friday or Saturday and be like talking to his mom, like, hey, can so and so come out because we're just walking around and it's really nice out. We're having a fire, and she knows that we're ding dong ditching and we're knocking on people's windows and stuff and just taking off running around and doing all kinds of stupid stuff. And they would say, okay, as long as you're not doing this. We're like, no, we're not doing that. And we would knock on their neighbor's house and run off like immediately. So stuff like that. It's just the second you're allowed to do what you want to do, I think something about not having the permission to do it is nice because now you're in control, like I said earlier. I also think that because when you're doing it, while you're in the moment, and let's say you get away with it, it builds confidence. When you're a kid, you don't really have many opportunities to feel powerful. But if you're out on your own, which is very hard to come by these days, in my experience anyway, you don't see many kids out on their own running around. At least I don't. But it allows them to kind of be in control of their own world and build the confidence to be like, I got away with that. We did that. We planned it. We basically did a heist. We planned it. We talked about it. We looked forward to it. We talked our parents into letting us get to the point where we can do it. We got our friends together, and then we went and did it, and we got away with it. And it was fun at the time. The social interaction that it causes that I talked about earlier, the friends and relationships that it can build. And let's say there's one road you can go down where you get away with it, and there's another road where you get caught. So you get caught, this is where you have to learn how to deal with consequences, and you then learn kind of creativity or problem solving because now you're grounded or whatever, and you kind of gotta, well, now what do I do? Now you gotta deal with the alone time or, the results of your actions. So there are pros and cons to it. I'm not saying like, oh yeah, when you're a kid, break the rules. So that's the only way it's going to be fun. That's not what I mean. But another thing that my favorite aspect is the emotion that it creates in the moment before, during, and after the event. Before, you're excited because you're planning ahead and you can't wait to do it. When you're in the moment, the adrenaline, it's so much fun, and the laughter it causes, I can't tell you how many times I'm going to keep referencing ding dong ditching this entire time because that was my favorite thing to do on like weekends when I was a kid. The amount of times somebody has knocked on the door and the lights in the house immediately come on, so you just hurry up and dive in their bush and like run to the neighbor's house and hide behind a tree and almost get caught, and then being somebody who is across the street safe and watching something like that happen. And then we get together after it's done and just laugh about it and share each other's perspectives. It's like, you should have seen what I saw and stuff like that. But the emotion, the laughter, and the fear of getting caught, it's just all such a rush. Um, and then after the fact, the memories, that is the biggest thing. I think this is enough to answer the question of this podcast alone. Does breaking the rules as a kid improve your childhood? Yes. Like just because of the memories you have from it. And the things I look back on now and get nostalgic about, I would love to go back and do it again. I would love to do it with my future kids. I cannot wait to, I don't want to say encourage them to do stuff like this, but I don't want them to miss out on it either. So it is literally a staple. And then another thing that I thought was interesting, and this is the last one, I'll stop talking so much, but the last thing is I think it encourages kids to a degree to not be so scared of taking risks. Because then you can get into high school and like you said earlier, like you can be a bit of a square and just kind of not boring. I think that's a bit of a strong word because just if you don't break rules, that doesn't mean you're boring and you know. But I think when you get to be an adult and you're scared to take risks, you're scared of messing something up or getting caught or whatever. I don't know. I think some of the coolest doors that I've opened in life came from some of the biggest risks I've taken. I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, I I like hearing your perspective because it's so different than mine. And I know the viewers won't know this, but like I've always thought of you as a very fun person. And I like not saying I'm not fun, but I am not. Like you can tell I didn't ding dong ditch. Like kind of like when you can tell somebody's homeschooled, no hate to the homeschooled people, but like you can tell when someone didn't have like a risky childhood. And I think I'm one of them, and I think I go to school with a bunch of them. I think we're all a gaggle of squares. But like when you say that it gives you emotion before, during, and after, I made a mental note of a specific word that you used. And I think that word alone explains why I didn't want to do these things. And the word was fear. You said that it evokes fear in the moment, fear of getting caught, and that's fun to you. I was a child whose whole life was fear for a different reason. Like, because I was always anxious about health and all these things. Like, I was a very anxious child. So I didn't want to seek out anxiety provoking activities because that's what I saw them as. Look, as an adult, I wish I would have gone ding dong ditching. I can't even say it once because I never went. I would go on walks with friends, and as soon as they started ding dong ditching, I walked home alone while everybody else stayed because I was so terrified of the consequence that I had in my head of getting caught. And if I didn't get caught by the police and get thrown in jail or whatever my terrifying, like my worst case scenario was then, if it wasn't that, it was, I was scared of what my parents were going to say because my parents told me to never do it. And
mine too.
I don't know. I didn't chase those highs because I think I just didn't want to do things that weren't stable or steady because I was someone who, growing up, my world felt so shaky because I was never really living in the present. And I really think that that's why I avoided other further anxiety provoking activities. Is I didn't want to ding dong ditch. I didn't want to TP people's houses. I didn't want to drink or go to a party if there was even the thought of drinking, because I didn't want to get in trouble because, like, I didn't want any sort of insecurity or instability. I wanted something that was secure. So I always remember parents who they knew what their kids were doing. We were at a fire and everybody would be conspiring. I've seen it from an outside point of view the whole time. Is I saw the kids conspire. They were so excited for the weekend. Oh, this weekend we're all gonna ding dong ditch, whatever, whatever. Bailey, come on, you can come with. And I was like, okay, like I'll go to the fire. But I knew I wasn't gonna do the ding dong ditching. And so we would all be at the fire. It would get late enough. The parents would be like, okay, everybody be good. We're gonna go, whatever. And they'd be like, okay. And they would sneak out, and I'd still be sitting at the fire. There were a couple other people who were like me, so I would just sit with them at the fire. And the parents would come out and excuse me. The parents would come out and they'd be like, why didn't you go with? And I would flat out say, I'm not interested in doing what they're doing. Like, and I, in that moment, was like, like the parent obviously knew, but like to me, like I would sit there and I'm like, my parents would never, ever. My parents were cool, don't get me wrong, but not like that. Like, I also lived in a smaller town, so there wasn't.
We both lived in the country, and the people I know who you're talking about, and both our set of friends that we would go to on the weekend to Ding Dong Ditch live in town.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So that was different, where it's like, your parents are okay with you going. It just never sat well with me. I remember the one time I had the guts to go, and I knew they were gonna ding dong ditch, and as soon as they did, it was like, okay, like I was running, hiding, doing the thing. They did 2 houses, because at the second house the kid picked up rocks and threw rocks at the house.
Yeah, see, that's what I was talking about, like with intention. You got to know where to draw the line.
Yeah. And so that was the only time I ever went ding dong ditching in my life, and the one time I did, someone threw rocks. Yeah. So I was like, I'm not doing this again. Like this, I'm good. I wiped my hands clean of it. So I don't even count that as a ding dong ditch run, because they did one house and then they did rocks. And so I had no interest in it, because that, to me, there's a difference between curiosity and just being reckless. Like,
absolutely.
And where people draw the line is different, and mine obviously was a little more along the, like, if you barely dipped your toe out of line, you were already like, my buzzer was already going off. I'm like, I don't like this. Yeah. Whereas other people, you could do something that's minor, like ding dong ditching somebody. But to me, I was like disrupting somebody's evening, and that was not cool. Like, that's what I was thinking of it as.
Very empathetic as a kid, apparently.
Yes. And so, like, I know how terrifying it would be if somebody randomly rang my doorbell. Like, as someone, I live in the country, it would be terrifying if somebody just randomly rang my doorbell. I didn't grow up as a town kid, obviously. So I can see from an outsider, like, why you would want to do it. But personally, it does not align with something I wanted to do.
You understand. You just can't relate.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. Because, like, I know that there are things that breaking rules offers you that following rules doesn't. Like you mentioned, consequence. If you never break a rule, in theory, you should not have a negative consequence. So then you won't learn what a natural or an imposed consequence is. You also, and this is one thing that I can get on the train of, breaking the rules makes your childhood better. It makes it more fun. If you are the type of child who likes that, I will get on board with that. But I will take it one step further, and breaking the rules as a child makes your adulthood better. because one thing that I have learned from like hearing your childhood versus mine, if you I'm an open book. If you lay me out, I don't like to take risks, really. Like, I'm a very calculated risk person. It takes me a long time to handle uncertainty. And what I think breaking rules does for children is it gives you an opportunity to make decisions in times of uncertainty as a kid.
Yeah.
And I find like you can make decisions most cases pretty quickly when the result isn't quite certain. You can discern what is important, what emotions serve you, what doesn't, and you can think through that quickly. I get stuck on the first step many times, and it takes me a lot longer to analyze uncertainty. Certainty, that is my bread and butter. I know certainty, but it's because my childhood was full of certainty. And I think because yours was full of uncertainty and certainty, but like because you had that exposure growing up and you built that confidence in, oh, I tripped after I ding dong ditched, I'm more likely to get caught. Like, let's say that happened. I don't know if that actually happened to you, but like you needed to quickly analyze a situation where now you're not certain. You are on the floor instead of running already. You need to calculate a new plan so you still don't get caught. Kind of like that. I didn't put myself in those positions, so that part of my brain didn't develop the same way yours did. And I think it's interesting because I do think it has helped you in many ways as an adult and as a future parent. I think it helps you because that's something I'm not going to understand when we have kids, is that aspect of it and what it can offer. I can see from like stepping back what I'm missing, and I see it in you, which I think is interesting. And not to sound sappy, that wasn't supposed to be romantic, but like, I mean, literally, like those parts that I didn't grow in, I think you thrived in, and vice versa. There's many things that I'm good at that
Right.
you didn't develop because you were out breaking rules instead of following them and being a square. So I just think um, it's an interesting thing that it has to offer. And the third one you already mentioned is you learn how to read people better. When it comes to those situations, like reading the parents' situations, making connections with people and socializing, scheming, it gives you a sense of like understanding how to analyze an environment, a risk, and then people, like in a way that I wouldn't have analyzed people because I wasn't in that position. So I can see and respect what it has to offer. I just personally didn't seek it out because to me it was just too uncertain, and that
Right.
scared me.
I mean, like I said, there you gotta, and you did touch on it, which I thought was cool. There is a definite line between rebellion and stupidity. Like when we would go out and do stuff like that, never once did we turn, just running around being stupid into like vandalizing and damaging somebody's property. Like there would be times where, similar to what you did. Now I was not one to turn down, toilet papering somebody's house. That's pretty innocent to me. Like that you can clean up. It's a little bit more of a like a longer lasting prank, but a lot of times I would go and people would be egging people's houses, and that's where it's like, okay, I'll egg a stop sign, but I'm not gonna, because I was told very early. I think it was like one of the first times I ding dong ditched, and it was mentioned. It was like, yeah, don't be egging people's houses. It damages paint, and it don't do that stuff because it can literally cause damage, and people pay money for that. I definitely had the respect for people's property at the same time, which I think is really important, and that goes back to intention. And that's something that I think is a little difficult for a kid to have at that age, because I understand when you're a kid and you grab a handful of rocks and throw it at somebody's house. It's just that impulsive or intrusive thought when you're a kid to just do something and you don't have the filter yet that's like, hey, don't do that, because like there isn't that empathy and thinking about what the person is going to have to go through. Let's say you throw a rock and break a window. It's just, I had a little bit more exposure to that, so I had absolutely no problem going and breaking rules and stuff because I knew where to draw the line, and never did I once damage somebody's property and like house and stuff. So it's really important to know where it is or isn't okay to take a part in. Now, as far as fear and getting caught, that was an interesting line that I had to find. Like, some lines you don't know where it's at until you cross it, and then you have to deal with consequences. But there is value in dealing with consequences. There is value in getting caught. And it does depend what you do with it, because sometimes I would assume in your case, if you would have, like, say, gotten caught by the cops ding-dong ditching or something, probably would have scared you straight and you wouldn't have done it again. We've been caught several times, and every time we were like, okay, don't do that again because we got caught. It's just like finding ways to work around it and keep getting away with it. So it was like, you know, we got better at breaking the rules, which was interesting.
That alone, I have something written that I wanted to go off of, and you said that, so if you don't mind. Speaking of like getting scared straight, or what, like being disciplined or finding ways around it, structure versus freedom is what I had it written down as. And my thing is like seeing strict parents versus lax parents, and then how that changes, if it does, in your opinion, when/if you become a rule breaker or rebellion. Like, what the kids who had the lax parents, who knew they were still doing it, and the kids who had the strict parents, like I had strict parents in terms of like, don't do that, right, and I just listened. Now, I don't know what would have actually happened if I did do that. My parents are pretty cool. Yeah, it's one that I still don't know the answer to as a 25-year-old. You know, like I don't know what my dad would have done if I got caught ding dong ditching, because I never did, because I didn't even go. So I guess where do you think the parenting kind of comes in when it comes to influencing how rebellious someone is, or how respectful? Like, you were a respectful rebeller, and I would say you had pretty strict but not parents. Yeah. Whereas there's tons of parents who are so strict, but then their kids are the ones that are being rebels and they don't have the respect. So what do you think? I want to hear how you kind of dissect that. Do you think stricter parents produce more rebellious children, or is it more about the parents and less about the kids? Because
I really like this question, and I have so many experiences that contradict other experiences. So, for example, I'm going to try not to use too many people's names or anybody's, but I have one friend that we would not want to do anything rebellious without him, because he was so much fun and he had the strictest parent. So he was the most enjoyable. He was the most daring, and he had the strictest parent. So there's that where I do agree, and this could go into a totally different topic that I think we could eventually talk about. Being a helicopter parent, I don't think is a good idea for your kid at all, because then not only is he scared to break rules or do anything, but when he gets the chance to, he's not going to know where to draw the line, because I've seen many people who have strict parents and they just, I feel like square is a bit of an insult, but I mean, it is what it is. A bit of a square, and listen to their parents and didn't live a little. I feel like they're taking life too seriously, and as soon as they get the first taste, when they get into like high school, is the experience that I have, they just take off. You know, the underage drinking is like the biggest example that I have. So many of my friends started doing underage things, vaping, smoking, drinking, stuff like that. And a lot of them, it was because they weren't allowed to. And as soon as they see somebody like, let's say, parents who are more relaxed and not as involved with their kids' life, those kids are the ones who are getting a hold of vapes and stuff. And then they are like, hey, kid that has strict parents, check this out. Look what I can do. And the kid is like, okay, I'll try it, whatever. And then after that, it's like, oh, this is cool. And they associate that with higher status. And that is really important to a high schooler, because it's really difficult to seem confident and competent. It's very rewarded in high school. So things like that feel so rewarding but are not cool and just horrible habits to start at that age, at any age really. There comes a point where you have to be okay with your kid doing a certain amount of rebellious activities. You have to set boundaries, and there have to be consequences, but you cannot just dictate your kid's life and force them to not at least experience a little bit of that adrenaline or a little bit of that fear. Because I have so many people that I can name right now that they, even to this day, even almost a decade after high school, they still are living the high school life because they had strict parents. They weren't allowed, and they didn't do any of the fun, daring stuff when they were younger. And now that's how they live their life, because they started the underage drinking, and they're like, oh, going to the bars all the time and having a fake ID and just doing stuff like that was so exciting. And now it's just a habit. It's just part of their identity now. So there is a definite downside to being too strict of a parent.
I think the same can be said about being too lax.
Absolutely, and that was what I was going to get into after that, because I have plenty of friends who parents were barely in the equation in terms of knowing what the kid has on his report card, knowing what he's out doing when he's out at 11 o'clock on a school night. And those are the kids that usually are doing whatever the hell they want and influencing the kids with strict parents to, stuff like that. I will say, in my experience, my parents were fairly strict, but I was able to kind of permeate that line a little bit, and I was able to ride the line pretty well. And I got pretty good at negotiating what I was able to get away with, but I also knew the consequences if I broke what I said I was going to do or what they were okay with doing. There was other kids who didn't have curfews. I was not one of them. I had the earliest curfew out of everybody, and it would drive me nuts. And I would have to leave all the events and functions first, and everybody would be like, oh, just stay out later, it's fine. I'm like, there's no way. I had strict parents, don't get me wrong. But if I messed up, if I crossed the line, or I did get in trouble, and there were plenty of those times too, there were consequences, and I dealt with them, and eventually it let me become more of a responsible kid who also wasn't terrified to live a little. I I think it's such an important thing to break the rules a little bit as a kid because you learn not to take life so seriously. Because I think what a big thing when you get out of high school is we think everything is the end of the world. And a lot of times adults get out of school, they get into a job and they get comfortable in their career, and then they look back at their school life or their childhood and like, why was I so upset about that? Why did I think that that was going to be the end if I got caught, or if I got in trouble doing that? Something like that. That is my experience as far as staying out late, breaking rules. I've been caught plenty of times by cops, my parents, other people's parents, the people's houses who we were toilet papering or ding dong ditching. And the consequence was never as bad as I thought it was. And I think that's a big thing that you were talking about. You're always scared, like you don't know what's going to happen because you never did it. You don't know what your dad would have done because you never crossed the line and made his threats turn into reality. I'm not sitting here telling any kids to go break rules and it's going to make your childhood better. I think that's a bit extreme, but also I wouldn't want you to miss out on it. The emotion that it triggers when I just thinking about stories, it molded who I am to a degree, and it's super important. I think there's a certain degree you have to ask, and I'm going to ask you, do you think rule followers are happier or just safer?
It's a good question. My instant answer was safer.
Right.
I think we're quieter. I think we're safer.
You're more certain.
Yeah, and in a way, while that sounds nice, I think there's an emotion. Happiness isn't the emotion I'm thinking of, but there's an emotion that comes with an uncertainty that certainty will never give you. And I don't know what to name it, but I know I didn't have enough of it. But I think the biggest thing about this is me personally, I didn't live in the moment enough. And I think you doing things like this, putting yourself in situations where you have to be in the moment, because if you're not, you're going to get caught. As a child who lived in the future during the present, I would have gotten caught because I would be so over analytical of everything that could go wrong that it would slow me down. I wish I learned how to live in the moment as a child so I would know how to live in the moment as an adult. It's something I struggle with to this day. So I would say that we're just quieter, we're safer. I wouldn't say that we're happier as rule followers. I think stable and certain are the two words that people who are rule followers crave, is that stability and that certainty. But I would also not encourage children to go be vandalizing, reckless
You got to know where the line is.
freaks. But coming from someone who never dipped their toe, I think as an adult, I probably could have benefited from doing it at least a couple more times in my older childhood. I think I did it when I was too young and never again when I was just the right age.
Right. It's hard when you're a kid knowing, it when you're younger, usually your parents are driving it in you not to get in trouble, not to do this, or there will be consequences, and there's a degree of fear in that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's tough to know because you're just a kid. Yeah, especially if you're a kid that lives in the future. That is something. It's hard to know when to live in the future. It's good to be able to. You don't want to just live in the moment because then tomorrow you're going to be screwed because you didn't think ahead. You didn't have the foresight to prepare yourself for what the moment was getting yourself into for tomorrow. So you don't want to live in the past, but you want to reflect on the past to learn for the future. You don't want to live in the future because then you don't live in the moment. And then, like I just said, you don't want to live too much in the moment. But when you're a kid, I think this is a big thing that doing this type of stuff, you need to get experience with all of them. Yeah. And just know your consequences, know the boundaries that you, like, set your own boundaries and don't let anybody tell you to go too far, or don't let anybody discourage you from doing it at all. I think there's a lot of negative outcomes for that too, but yeah, if you don't have anything any more to add to that, that's...
No, I just I thought that was a good question because I had something similar in my mind. Like, do you think that childhood, like those rule following kids, if they're happier, if they're just quieter, was the word that I had in my head. And so I'm glad you asked it, because coming from a rule breaker to ask a rule follower that question, I think adds more value than the reverse. And then I had a question that might spark, I'm going to try not to let it spark too much of a off the rail story, but is there a rule that you wish you had broken?
Rule that I wish that I had broken. I feel like the ones that are coming to my mind were fairly innocent. They did have what I thought were decent consequences at the time. I wouldn't change that I didn't sneak out of the house. It was almost impossible for me to, but I wouldn't change that I didn't stay out later past my curfew when I was out. The only thing that's coming to my head is when we were, which is kind of weird because it seems very dull and innocent for me, but there were a few times in high school when you were at our school, when you were a freshman and sophomore, you couldn't leave campus for lunch, even if you had your license, which I thought was super stupid. I left with a friend twice, and it was the most fulfilling lunch ever. It was just because, oh, don't let the teacher see you when you're walking to the parking lot in between classes and lunch. I wish I would have done that a little more.
That's a tricky thing to pull off. We went to such a small school. Everybody.
The teachers are going to the same cafeteria you are.
Yeah, everybody knows what grade you're in.
Yeah, everybody knows everybody where we're from.
Right.
That was not easy. That one, we went to Dairy Queen twice. I remember them because we would go and we would be nervous about coming back, that the principal would be waiting for us in the parking lot. And you get there and you get into as soon as you're in the school, it's like, we did it. We pulled it off. And it's something, just eating lunch. We pulled off eating lunch. It was so fulfilling when it was literally just as simple as getting something to eat. Like, we weren't ditching school. We weren't doing anything like that. Yeah, I think I would like love
that one. I like that one.
Because listen, I went to school. I got good grades. I never had anything lower than a B on a report card, ever. I had the comfort of, I'm a good student. as long as I don't let that slip and I don't become a criminal, I think that's a good balance. I think that's a good in between.
That's all it takes.
I think it, do what you want with that information. Question I wanted to close with and ask you, what you said you didn't do a lot of it, but you have to have a favorite memory from breaking the rules.
I'm going to have to think about that for a minute. My favorite memory from breaking a rule. This is also interesting to ask someone who doesn't have the greatest ability to recall my childhood. Like, I don't remember a lot of...
Nothing pops into your head as soon as I say that? Favorite memory breaking the rules. What is that pops into your head? There's got to be something. Unless it's just so foreign to me for there not to be something just immediately like, oh, I want to tell so bad. I got a good story for that.
I am trying to go through and think. There's some little things where, like, when I had my cousins over, we would sneak out into the garage and, like, steal, like, a frozen pizza and make it when we were supposed to be sleeping.
Yeah.
Like, little innocent things like that, but that's such a lame one. I'm trying to find a cool...
If it's your favorite one, it's your favorite one.
I don't think that would be my favorite.
It doesn't have to be the most daring rule-breaking thing you ever did. It's what's your favorite one? There's a reason I'm asking your favorite one.
Well, okay, this one, it's not really... It wasn't really breaking a rule, but we would have chores to do during the day while my mom was at work. And we were old enough to stay home alone and be fine. I would say my favorite memories are the ones that I try to go back to when I get super stressed out, is instead of doing those things, instead of folding the laundry and making sure all the dishes were done before mom got home, we would make more dishes because we would make ramen noodles, and we would play Xbox all day. And me and my siblings, we would play. This is why I love Transit so much, is because we didn't have Xbox Live.
Call of Duty Black Ops 2 Zombies, by the way.
Yes.
Anybody who's
confused. Yeah. We would play Transit. That's all we could really play because the three of us, it was between that or survival. And I mean, the options were too limited. And so we would play that for hours. My mom worked all day, and we would get a call from mom sometimes. Most often she wouldn't call, but she would call when she was off work or when she was at the store and said, like, hey, lay out the hamburger or whatever. And it was always those moments where we would look at the time and we would be like, oh shit. Logan, you start doing dishes. Bailey, you need to do the laundry. Kennedy, you need to let the dogs out or go grab the hamburger. Put it in the water. Like, we would have to, like, try to thaw things out too fast. And I think my mom knew that we never got our chores done. Like, almost ever. Because I would say if there's any time that I lived in the moment in childhood, it was when I was with my siblings and when we did that stuff. Because time would just melt away. We would fight. We would call my mom. Like, my poor mom is trying to just work. And Kennedy or I would call and be like, Logan's doing this and that. And my mom would have to, like, give, like, the you listen here. You listen and you listen good. You need to knock it off and stop calling me. Figure it out. I would say those would probably be my favorite memories, even though it wasn't like we weren't sneaking out.
Yeah.
We weren't breaking many rules. We just weren't doing our chores. But the memories from not doing what we should have been doing, those are what I think stick out of anything in my childhood. Yeah, I wasn't a big rule breaker. So I would say that would be the most, that would be the best answer and the most true to who I am, because there were very few times where I broke rules or like blatantly just did not listen to my parents. Others were like when I would stay out when we started dating, I would stay out past my curfew and I would just not answer my phone. Or I would say, we're watching a movie. It's got an hour and a half, even though there's 15 minutes left of the movie. So that way I could hang out with you just a little bit longer. Like, I know my parents knew what I was doing, just trying to hang out. So those are the ones that mean the most to me, is siblings and things with you. I didn't really do anything with friends like that growing up. Is there one that comes to your mind as soon as I flip the question back onto you?
I tried really hard this whole time not to make it a ding dong ditching podcast, because I could make one. Yeah. And I think it would be so much fun, maybe one day. I'll get the quick one out of the way. It was toilet papering somebody's house. So I have one friend whose house we would the whole group would go to this person's house. It's like in the dead center of town. You can go any way, hit everybody. And his dad was whose house it was. His dad, we were all ding dong ditching all night. His dad called him and was like, hey, everybody come back here. We thought we were in trouble. He called us back and he goes, everybody get in the truck. And we were like, okay. He took us to Dollar General at like 9 o'clock at night. It was about to close. And we got like 3 big bags of toilet paper. And we went straight from Dollar General to his brother's house, which was like 5 minutes away. So it was my friend's uncle whose house we were going to. And it was his dad who was taking us there, a bunch of kids in the bed of a old Ford Ranger. And 5 minutes from Dollar General to his house, we're getting the rundown of what we're even doing because we had no idea we were on our way to do it. He goes, all right, here's the deal. We're going to insert name here, house, and we're going to toilet paper his house. He's got these many trees in his yard. You go to this tree, you go to the bush, you hit the house, and everybody open up the toilet paper right now and start getting it unpeeled so we don't have to do it there, so we can just get a handful and start going. And it was the whole time, it was the permission that we had from the adult to do something that we shouldn't be doing. It was so much fun the entire time. I mean, 9 o'clock at night on a weekend, his brother was still awake. The lights were still on. We were not worried about getting caught because we had permission from the adult. We were toilet papering his house. We littered this guy's house with toilet paper and got in the truck. Everybody, I remember, jump over the side of the bed. Everybody lays down in the bed and we drive off. It was so much fun, and I will remember that forever. Now, that's not even the biggest one. The best one was ding dong ditching, of course. So, the biggest group that I had ever been a part of, ding dong ditching, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 6 or 7 of us. And we had been planning this for days, maybe even over a week, which was pretty big for being in grade school. Everybody convinced their parents to let them meet at this person's house and stay out late and do whatever. It's probably like 11 o'clock to 11:30 at night or something like that. And we had been ding dong ditching for like 2 hours. We're hitting all directions of town, and there'd be times where we'd have 4 of us, and we're hitting a whole like line of houses at the same time. We're like both sides of the street, so it makes it more of a challenge to hide because you can't just run across the street because the ones across the street got hit too. And so we'd have 4 people hitting a house at the same time, and then everybody just disperses, and then we somehow meet again just naturally. We had been going for hours that night, and we get around the little skate park, which is super small. It's literally just a one tabletop in the middle, a couple rails, and then one little like ramp that you can ride down. No like bowl in the concrete or anything. A very small skate park that had just chain link fence all the way around it. And we were getting ready to hit somebody's house. We're walking up on the porch. And all night, by the way, I should have mentioned this earlier, all night we had been avoiding this one cop car. We could look down one street and he's driving this way, and it had been passing us, so we'd have to hide behind a tree and let him drive by. So we get around the skate park and we are walking up onto somebody's porch to knock on their door. And there's probably 3 of us on this porch at a time. And then everybody else is just sitting in the yard. And we hear one kid say like, "Oh, cop, cop, cop." And we turn around and this cop is at the corner pulling up and getting ready to turn on the corner towards us. And so the cop is behind us. He's turning towards us, and the skate park is the opposite way of the cop, thank God. So not only did we hit the house still, but we ran through this person's yard, hurried up and jumped the fence to get into the skate park. I think it was me and one other person. Everybody else dispersed. Me and one other kid made it into the skate park without getting seen. And the cop had his spotlight that was up by the mirror, and you can shine it. He was doing it before he got around the corner because he obviously saw us. I'm sure cops knew what we were doing. They're not dumb. But me and one other kid ran into the skate park. And like I said, the tabletop was in the middle. That's a ramp that goes like kind of a down angle, and then it's flat on the top like a table, and then there's another angle on the other side. Well, I was coming from the fence. My one friend was in front of me. He ran on the back side of the tall ramp, so he was fine. He just made it on the other side when I was getting to the back end of the tabletop. This cop is now around the corner, and he's shining his spotlight into the skate park, and it had rained that day. So everything was wet. The top of the tabletop had this massive puddle on it. And as soon as this cop was rounding the corner, it felt like a movie scene. I felt like I was in an action movie and I just escaped. I dove and baseball slid over this tabletop and perfectly slid down the other side and just hunkered down and like tucked myself as tight as I could. And as soon as I did, I'm just looking at my friend who is past me, and I see the spotlight come right over my head as soon as I do. And I'm like, we're stuck because we're fenced in now. If that cop comes in or whatever, and I see the spotlight go, and it kind of makes a lap of the skate park, and then it turns away, and then he drives off. And I kind of peek my head around the ramp, and he goes and takes off down the next street. And we hurried up, got out of the skate park, took off, and then we went a different direction and kept going all night. And so the reason I wanted to ask this question is because of everything we just talked about and all of the conversation, and let's say the emotion that you had when you were telling it. Oh, like, hurry up and Logan, you do this, you get these chores done. You're delegating who needs to take care of the responsibility that you forgot to do, and the smile you had on your face, the way your eyes light up, and I'm sure the way that I was, the amount of hand gestures that were going on just then when I was telling that, it's that type of stuff that I love to reflect on, and that alone is enough to tell me that breaking the rules to a degree as a kid is life-changing. But yeah, anyway, share your favorite rule-breaking story in the comments. I would love to hear people's story. That would be really cool. So do it. But anyways, yeah, I was a fan of rule breaking, and I recommend it.
You look like you need to go work out and like get this energy out
yeah,
before
it
bed.
gives me a lot of
You're
energy.
like buzzing.
That's what it does. I'm telling you.